It's so unexpected.
It's one of those you had to be there moments.
You had to be there.
It subsequently genuinely did change everything about my life.
You had to be there.
Jason McAteer, good morning to you.
How are you? You okay?
Welcome to the show. Thanks, I know you've been patient in the background there. Thanks a million. How are you getting on?
Yeah, all good. All good. Just been a busy year with the World Cup. I'm obviously out in Qatar at the minute. I don't know if you know. I'm out in Qatar, so I've been here for a while, to be honest. I just didn't go home. So we've just been mad busy with everything here, like Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League, and then we did the Europa League last night. In fact, we done the Conference League. We done West Ham last night. So yeah, it's all busy and obviously winding up now to the summer. Then we got the Women's World Cup. Then we've got the Premier League starts again. Then the Asian Cup in January, February. So it's just really busy here.
It's endless, yeah. It's probably not a bad way to be. Your list is unbelievable, so we've got about 20-25 minutes and I want to get into it. It's an incredible list. It's possibly as good a list, I think, it's the best list we've had, let's just call it. We're going to kick things off. Paul McGrath, 1994, Italy, World Cup. Talk to us a little bit about yourself, almost maybe, if you will, just in the lead into it, the context of yourself. You're still at Bolton at that stage, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's right. We changed manager at Bolton. Bruce Rioch had come in for Phil Neal, who signed me. I'd been there probably about 5 months, and then obviously Bruce comes in, and then he changes it up. He throws a bit of the youth into the team, and myself, Alan Stubbs, he brought in Alan Thompson, and we kind of went on a really good few cup runs and stuff. So we kind of made a bit of a name for ourselves, but we quickly started getting some attention, and for me it was international attention. So I got asked to play for England, turned them down, and then obviously Jack then asked me to play for Ireland, and Ireland had already qualified for the World Cup. So we had a couple of warm-up games. There was one in Germany, I remember, in Hanover, and I think we won 2-0. Gary Kelly scored. And I think Jack had kind of made his mind up then that he was going to take myself, Phil Babb, and Gary Kelly to the World Cup in the June. So obviously I was delighted, but I didn't expect at all, to feature in any of the games. I was still wet behind the ears. I was still, learning my trade really at Bolton. So to be thrust into international football, never mind the World Cup, was one thing. So I just took it all in my stride, to be honest. So I ended up on the plane, and before I know it, I'm landing in New York with the squad.
You, even despite all that, would have come within a whisker of starting that game, would you? Ray Hatton obviously is back from the dead. You replace him in the game. Things could have been very different.
Yeah, I never went there with expectations of playing. It was kind of, I always felt I was going to be back up, and I just wanted to enjoy the experience. I mean, it was a lot more relaxed back then. We weren't getting monitored, and we didn't have watches on or the body packs that they wear today, and diets wasn't really a thing. So there was very much a feel-good factor, and the fact that I think a country when Ireland go, the expectations is kind of just to get out the group is success for us. So it was very much a relaxed camp. I think there was obviously some nailed-on starters. You look at Packy, nailed on, and then Andy, Steve Staunton, Dennis Irwin. There was obviously one or two positions that were probably up for grabs because of injuries and stuff, but I never felt that I was always in contention to take over from Ray Houghton, or I was going to push him for a place. But one thing I did remember is I adapted really well to the heat. I mean, it was so hot out there in June in New York and in Florida that I was really fit. I was a really fit player. I was box to box midfield. Jack see me obviously on the right. I played a few games, the warm-up games on the right, but I was very, very fit, and I adapted really well to the weather. So I don't know whether Jack's seen something in training where he thought I'm going to use him at some point. But obviously that's how it happened. Come the first game against Italy, I was used for about 25, 28 minutes or something.
She's getting the chance to play at the Giant Stadium as well, Jason. Such a historic venue as well. It must have been pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's funny really, because when you play in a game and you're picked, you have a routine, and you're in your own world. I mean, I've been lucky enough to play around the world in some of the best stadiums in all different countries. And to be honest, I couldn't tell you a great deal about the experience. I could tell you something that happened in the game, or maybe, I don't know, something stuck in my mind. But when you're playing, you're very much focused on yourself and the moment and the 90 minutes and what you want to do and how you want to do it, your preparation, your eating and stuff. When you're not picked to play and you don't think you're going to play any part, not that you're kind of there on holiday, but you kind of absorb it a lot more. Like, I remember, coming out the hotel, getting on the bus, the music that we used to play, Mick Byrne, big sing-song on the bus. And then it went quite quiet as we went into the stadium. I remember the dressing room being massive. The thing about America at the time, everything was bigger. So everything just felt massive to me. So I went, it was my birthday as well. So, I was enjoying like people saying happy birthday and getting cards and, speaking to people. My family were there. So I was very, very relaxed. And then I remember going out on the pitch and looking up, and it just went up and up and up. And it was just like filling up with people. And I'd come from Bury away at Bolton. I'm thinking, what is going on here?
Same.
Yeah, it's mental. It's mental. And then, you do the team talk. Jack, done his team talk. The players were ready and prepared. It was so hot. And then we go out and play. And then I'm on the bench. And then I remember Jack, I was telling Richie Keys yesterday, because the weather is so hot. I remember Jack saying to me, go and warm up. And I remember thinking, it's 120 degrees in the stadium. I couldn't get any hotter. It's like, I'm like, Jack, throw me on, I'm ready. And then it was that moment, it kind of dawns on you, wow, I'm going on here. I'm going on. And it's like Maldini, Baresi. I'm watching these fellas on Gazzetta Football on Channel 4. Like, 6 weeks earlier, I'm watching Channel 4 on a Saturday morning with James Richardson. And these are all becoming my heroes, really. I mean, Maldini, Baresi, Baggio, Signori, Donadoni, Costa Curta. I mean, the names just roll off your tongue.
Crazy.
It's like, they're there.
Yeah.
They're there. I remember being in the tunnel with them, thinking, oh my God, these are like film stars. These fellas, look at them. They were all tanned. Like they were because it was hot, they were like they had a glow because they were sweating. Maldini had his long hair. Donadoni, it was like, Baresi looked like a Roman gladiator, all the scars on his face, and he's like hard looking. Baggio was like poster boy. And like we were basically like the dog and duck, to be honest. It was like, compared to the Italians, there was no comparison.
But for all that, Jason, it was a man in the Irish number 5 shirt that stole the show.
Yeah. I remember, obviously, I watched, a good hour of the game, and the thing that stood out is after the game, and maybe a couple of years later, you don't appreciate probably the performance at the time, or you do, but you don't put it into great context. It's when you know Paul's background. I knew it, and I knew there was problems. And I knew, he had his struggles. But being young and being in my own world, you don't take on board the enormity of the struggles for someone as an individual. And it's only when you go later on in your career and you realise, to go through that, but then perform at that level. It's just, you've got to just put it into context. And, some of the things he was doing. And I remember Babsy obviously played alongside him because Kev had got injured. Kevin Moran got injured. So Babsy had got his chance. And I was really worried for Babsy. But it was quite evident that the two of them struck up a really good partnership. And Paul looked after Phil as well. So it was not only his performance, it was the fact that Phil played so well off Paul looking after him and directing him and showing him basically where to be and just, directing traffic. And, after the game, it was one of them moments which wasn't captured. I mean, the Pele Bobby Moore photograph, the famous photograph where they swap shirts. There was a moment Baresi and Paul come together, and it was that moment. And I remember shaking hands with everyone and watching, because it was Baresi, and he comes up to Paul and they exchange words and they hug each other. And it was that Bobby Moore Pele moment for me, and I've got it in my head. I've always had it in my head, this image. And it was, Baresi approached Paul. It wasn't the other way around. And it was just, I've watched it back a few times, and that performance from a centre half under them conditions and the stresses he was going through in his own life was just phenomenal. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal.
A phenomenal player, and we sometimes think, we think about it through green tinted lenses. You had Gary Lineker on Twitter the other week saying that he was, I can't remember, was it the best centre, one of the best centre backs.
Marshall Halland.
Marshall Halland, incredible. Right, we're going to move on. We're moving to forward a few years. We're moving to Lansdowne Road. Needless to say, everybody expected this to be on the list. It's Ireland-Holland. It's World Cup 2002 qualifier. Holland are having a few struggles. They needed a win to stay alive. Ireland hadn't lost under Mick at Lansdowne Road. You want to talk about Roy Keane here. We might touch on you a little bit as well, but you want to talk about Roy.
Yeah, it kind of was, to set it up, it was kind of the perfect storm for us as a qualification. I mean, we'd entered the qualifiers with Portugal and Holland in the group, and we were never expected to get out, to be honest. Two powerhouses. But Mick had obviously, it evolved, the squad had evolved, and there was obviously the younger players had come in, but they were well settled when we started the campaign in 2000. A lot of them had had the debuts, a lot of them were used to Mick. Things had changed from the Jack era. Myself, Roy, Phil, although Phil was in and out under Mick, Gary, we were becoming more and more the senior pros and taking over from the likes of Ray and Ronnie and Andy Townsend and stuff. So, the campaign started well, although this is where the seeds are set, you see. This is where it leads up to why he, through that campaign was immense. But why that game, why I picked Roy, was obviously we went to Holland in the first game. Everyone, again, not expecting us to get anything. But then we go 2-0 up. And then we end up 2-2, being pegged back. And we're all congratulating each other and basically celebrating in the dressing room afterwards. And in its own right, it was a fantastic achievement. I don't want to take anything away from that night, because it was. But one person who didn't celebrate and was quick to tell us to stop was Roy. And, where we felt, we've achieved something great, to him, it was 2 points dropped. It wasn't the fact it was Holland, and it wasn't the fact that we went away and we got a draw. We dropped 2 points for being 2-0 up. And everyone kind of took a step back, and it took the edge off the celebration, but it also planted the seed that we shouldn't fear anyone in this group. We're here on merit. We're a very, very good team. We've got a chance, and our captain is telling us that. So, we went through the campaign, a couple of draws against Portugal, I think, and, we win the easier games, which then sets up the game in Lansdowne Road. Mick being very old school in his management, in the sense of, they use everything that they need to motivate you, which obviously was Van Gaal's interviews, and the Dutch's arrogance was mentioned. It was a matter of how many goals the Dutch were going to score that day. And I mean, you look down the team sheet and it was one to whoa, how are we going to get anything out of this today? It was full of stars. So, the game, we prepped most of the week. And then we kick off. England played as well that day, so there was a lot of football. Everyone with the world was watching. It's kind of a day out for everyone in the pubs, wasn't it, to go and watch a double header, England Ireland, and see Ireland get beat basically. And the game started, and then again the tone was set. Roy smashes over Mars.
Do you talk about that in advance, Jason? That was. It was the ball was there to be won, and he it's maybe the most famous tackle in Irish sport of all time, but he leaves something on him, obviously, and it kicks off a little bit afterwards, which I'd totally forgotten about. There's a little bit of a melee afterwards. I think Ian Hart tries to catch Zenden maybe a little bit. Clivert levels Kilban, who comes off laughing away. I texted about him last night. He said, I said, what were you saying to him that you walked away laughing? And it was an F word and something else or whatever. So there was an edge there. That was all within the first sort of couple of minutes. Was that something you spoke about beforehand, or did the tackle kind of go, oh, we're here? Yeah.
It kind of, the tackle, I remember it vividly. I don't remember much of the other stuff you just mentioned there, but the tackle vividly, because you start the game, there's a lot of nerves. And listen, we're at home, so the crowd, I mean, it was one of my favourite places to play, Lansdowne, because just the emotion, the crowd, the noise, what the Irish fans bring. They love sport, don't they? The Irish fans, they come and they watch but they always give us a chance. It was no matter who we played, the crowd always felt we had a chance. So, you go out there with now a bit of expectation. It's like in the dressing room, it's like, right, let's see what we've got and let's see if we could get something, where you go out and the crowd's basically expecting you to get something. It's not if, it's, you got to get something. So, you're a bit nervous. The national anthems play. It hadn't gone dark. It was bright. And we kind of, we were just not maybe overawed with the situation, but it was, for some of us, it was the biggest game that we've ever played, in the sense of where it was going to take us. I mean, I never played in the qualifiers, so I never had that sense of achievement with the lads in '94. I can tell you when, with Iran, the sense of achievement is phenomenal. It's something I'll never, ever forget, that feeling in Iran. But that game was obviously going to take us onto that. So, the tackle was the moment. The tackle was the moment where you brush everything off. You forget about the emotion of the game. You're in it now. It's like the first punch has landed. And it's like, as much as it knocked Overmars back, I think it spelt out to us, right, let's roll our sleeves up now. And, they did batter us for 20 minutes. And in all honesty, on another day, it could have been 2 or 3
Could have been
down. We could have been 2 or 3 down. Yeah. But the tackle, was like, we're in it. And then it was game on. And then I remember putting a cross in towards the end of the first half. I think Quinny chested it down and Robbie had a kick. And for me, you remember the Ivan Drago moment where Rocky punches him and he cuts him, and then it's that belief that you can actually hurt them. It was like, it was kind of like that moment then. And it was like, oh, right, we can actually we can make chances for ourselves. And with Robbie and Quinny, anything can happen. So the game, obviously goes on. Gary Kelly then smashes Overmars, gets booked. And then we're in a half time, 0-0. So it's game on.
It's the equivalent, I think, of Neil Armstrong for the rest of his life being asked what it was like to walk on the moon. Do you ever get sick of being asked about the goal against the Dutch? Is it the question you're most asked of, Jason?
That and the white suits, yeah. I think wherever I go in the world, you meet anyone from Ireland and they were at the game. There must have been 3 million at that game that day, because I've met every one of them. And everyone wants to talk about it because it's their memory as well. It's not, when we do something like these moments now, I love reminiscing because it's yours, isn't it? It's your memory of it. It's my memory is going to be different than yours. I know I played, but my memory is different than Kevin Kilban's because we share different emotions and we've got different attachments to the situation. So, I love talking about things like that, and I love hearing other people's stories. I mean, this story obviously evolves into the Bono and the U2 and the Slane, and it's just. That is one of my biggest regrets, not going up to Slane that night, because I thought it was a wind-up, but it was actually true. I was supposed to go on stage, but, never mind. But that's another story. But, as far as this day goes, it was my moment in my career. I had a fantastic career and I loved every minute of it. But I always think, when you put the hard yards in, like a lot of elite sportsmen do, there is that nice thing to have a moment. Just a moment, and this is mine. This was my moment.
I've just out of the corner of my eye in the studio spotted Merlin's Ireland 2002 book with the man himself here on the front cover. He wanted to talk about Roy. He talks about himself as not being, wasn't a great player, wasn't technically very good. He makes an absolute mug out of Van Bommel in the lead into your goal.
Yeah. Well, the goal comes from a corner, which I had to run from the right over to the left for an in-swinger. So it was a pretty good corner, to be honest, if I say so myself. And the keeper comes and punches, and we obviously pick the ball up. And the best thing about the goal is the advantage, because Duffer gets absolutely mullered in a tackle.
Yeah.
And the referee waves play on. Now, that was a big advantage to take that free kick. It was a goal scoring opportunity. It was just outside the box. But the ball obviously ends up over a fin. And it was a great advantage by the referee. But from me personally, I really because the ball had gone so far back to the halfway line from the clearance, really I should have been on the right-hand side helping Finn out. It should have been me putting the cross in all honesty. And I kind of ambled back on side, and I got caught up in watching, to be honest. I got ball watching. You know, you get told off for that. But I got caught up ball watching. I think because it was on the left as well, on the halfway line, it might have given me the opportunity to track back if we'd have lost it. But, you know, Roy does brilliant, Duffer does brilliant. And then Finn, you know, turns back on himself onto his weaker foot, which I never understand. And he puts this ball in, which, you know, ends up being an in-swinger instead of an out-swinger because he's gone onto his left foot. And then Kev tries to head it on. Duffer tries to head it on, I think. And no one gets a touch. And there's me, back stick, unmarked, you know, with a bouncing ball, probably getting asked to do one of the hardest techniques, which is a half volley with a bit of topspin. So, yeah, I can't say I've ever done it previously, and I don't think I've ever done it since. So, it was very much set up to be my moment, and it drops. And Van der Sar, you know, he comes out, makes himself big, but not big enough. And it goes in the top corner, and, you know, the rush of adrenaline and achievement goes through you. And it's like you know, I think I jumped about 25 foot in the celebration. Yeah. And then all the lads come over, and then Roy ends up at my doorstep, and he just like gives me a bit of a like, well done, we've still got 20 minutes to go kind of look.
Yeah, get on with it.
Stop celebrating, let's get on with it. And I end up going back into position, and then we hold out. But you've asked me to pick a star from the day, and I've gone with Roy because, you know, he was immense through that qualifying campaign. And it still upsets me today that he missed the World Cup in the circumstances that he did, because he was arguably the best midfielder in the world at the time. And you mentioned some names there, and that's just Holland. You know, you go into the Italians, the English, you know, there was some top Germans, there was some top midfielders in the world. But he was definitely in the top three. And, you know, what he brought to the campaign, but what he brought to that day, the tackle, the leadership, you know, what he said at half time, you know, going back out for the second half. And then we were down to 10 men, you know, and it was get over yourself after the goal. We've still got 20 minutes to see this game out. And we did. I think I went off with cramp, with about 5 minutes to go. And then obviously we won the game. But yeah, it was some performance by him. But I think everyone was man of the match on that day. Everyone.
Your stickers are you can't see it where you're looking at us, but you got shinies in the book. We'll send you on a picture of it. Which okay. You were particularly rated. You weren't just a plain old glass matte sticker. You were a shiny.
Shiny. I mean, kids will be made up.
You were a shiny. Yeah. We'll send you on a picture of it. It's a beautiful little thing. All these years on. Whistle stop tour of the last three, right? So Tiger Woods, the Open, Royal Liverpool 2006.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from the Wirral. You know, I was born there, and I was never really a golf nut. But the Open hadn't been at Royal for 39 years, and you know, obviously Tiger was in his pomp. I think his dad had just died as well, so there was a lot of there was a lot of emphasis on Tiger, and, you know, obviously his relationship with his dad. And I was a Tiger fan. I mean, I think everybody was, wasn't he? I mean, what he'd done for sport, you know, for black athletes as well. You know, the game, you know, he was opening up so much to the world, wasn't he? And offering so much, but he was unbelievable. I mean, the stuff, you know, you go through his CV up to then, it was fantastic. So, you know, the Open being at Royal was literally 15 minutes from my house. So, you know, I'd managed to get some tickets. I was friends with a couple of people from TaylorMade. So I got invited. So I went with a friend, and we went down there, and I got a text just before I went onto the course saying, come to the truck, the TaylorMade truck. It's down the side of the practice area. So I was like, okay. So me and my friend, we walk through the crowds, we get in, and then we make our way to the practice area. And as I'm going in, it was like a small gap, but it was like there was like a small fence. There was lots of people on the outside of the fence, and then there was obviously all the coaches and kind of friends and maybe some family on the inside of the ropes. But there was a small gap to go through to get onto the inside of the ropes. So I was walking through, and I was getting asked to do some autographs and some photographs and stuff and whatever. So I was kind of in this gap where the players come in and start to practice. So I'm there and I'm signing some autographs and people are having a bit of a laugh and stuff, and I'm talking. The next thing I just get a excuse me like that. So I kind of turn around, and Steve's there, his caddy, and Tiger's standing behind him. And it's the Sunday, it's the final day. So he's obviously come to the practice to warm up. So now I'm standing there blocking Tiger Woods going into the practice area. So I'm like, I just give him a sorry, mate, and then walked in and kind of said to him, thanks very much, and walked in, and then just But what I felt was, when someone's got a presence about them. I mean, he's tall and he's like, he's athletic and he's like, he looks the part in his red top, and he just had this, he just oozed this aura and this personality and charisma, and he walked in like he owned the place. It was like he just stood out, and I went and watched him hit a few balls, and then I went to the truck, and then I watched from the truck, which was down the side of the practice area where they were hitting balls. So he then disperses and he goes obviously onto the putting green, and I walk back across, but I walk across the drive, the practice area, because no one else is there, because he's obviously in the last group. So I walk across, and the police had come onto the practice ground to stop people going on there. And there's ball spotters who go and pick up all the balls. So Tiger hit his own balls. They were night balls at the time, and he had his own balls. So people were trying to pick his balls up and identify them. So I picked a couple of balls up, and one of them was Tiger's, and there was a policeman there. And I looked at it, and I looked at this policeman, and he went, "Go on." And I just put it in my pocket.
Class.
And
you still have it?
Walking. Yeah. So I got one of Tiger Woods' golf balls.
That's class.
So I've still got it. I've got a box at home with all stuff in it. It's in there.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So I went out, and then, I mean, I don't know if you lads have been to golf. It's quite a hard watch to golf. It's, it's a lot of walking around. You've got to be placed and watch them come through with the golf. You can't. It's difficult to walk around following someone, because the crowd following Tiger was just immense. But I was with someone who was, she was quite famous herself, and she was off the telly, and we got dogs abuse, to be honest. The amount of stuff that people were shouting, we ended up leaving. And I went home and watched it on the telly. I watched the rest of it on the telly. But just to see him in the flesh, to watch him hit golf balls, I mean, it makes a different noise. I mean, I play golf now. I play golf all the time. He's a different animal. The noise off a golf ball when he hits it it's different. It's just different.
Yeah, incredible thing to be at. To witness him and his pomp, just seriously. So the last two, right? Gino Wijnaldum against Barcelona 2016. They blitzed him. He's just in the team. Brilliant performance. And Floyd Mayweather against Ricky Hatton. You were in Vegas. Were you 2007?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fight was built up. Ricky was doing really, really well. Again, another bit of a funny story. He was doing really, really well, and he's obviously now earned the right to fight Mayweather. And it was obviously Vegas. But the dates fell where my agent rang me and just said, "Listen, you're off. Should we go to Vegas?" So I watched the fight. So I was like, "Yeah, fancy it, yeah." So he said, I was friends with Paddy McGuinness at the time. So he said, "Should we ask Paddy?" So I said, "Yeah." So he rang Paddy and I said, "Listen, do you fancy Vegas, Ricky Hatton fight? We can get tickets." So he goes, "I'm in." So we booked the flights. We fly to Vegas. We go over. We get the tickets. We go to the fight. Now, the thing that struck me was we get in the arena and in the hotel we watch the fight. Great seats, great tickets. Mayweather, he basically toyed with Ricky. And you talk about Tiger in his pomp. This was Mayweather now in his pomp. And, you know, I've never seen... Ricky Hatton didn't put a punch on him. He didn't lay a finger on him. And it was crazy. He toyed with him for round after round after round. And then he obviously wins the fight. And then everyone kind of disperses. And we're kind of hanging around, lingering around, letting the crowd go. And Mayweather comes back out. And he kind of gets on the mic and he introduces himself. He goes, I'm Floyd Mayweather. Because I don't think anyone expected him to come back out. He comes back out, he goes, I'm Floyd Mayweather. He went, listen, I just want to thank everyone for coming. You know, really appreciate your support. All the English fans who have come over, all the fans, all the international fans. You know, you've all come to watch. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I thought that was a really nice touch. So we were invited to the party after the fight. So we go, and Ricky, because he got knocked out, he had to go to hospital. So he turns up late. He's obviously a bit bruised and battered. So he stays about 5 or 10 minutes. We say hello to him. He then goes. But he says to us, come and see me tomorrow in the hotel. So we go, okay. So we go to his hotel the next day. And I remember knocking on his door. And he opened his door. And do you know what struck me? You could have drawn a line down the middle of his face. And this side of his face was basically out here. And this side there was not a mark on it. It was just remarkable. It was either this side was out here or this side was out here, whatever it was. But it was his leading side. So obviously you lead with one side. And Mayweather just jabbed this side of his face to a pulp, basically. And then obviously knocked him out, and he's obviously taken the thing. So we get in his room and he says to me, and Joe was in there, Joe Calzaghe. So he goes, listen, we've got to do Sports Personality of the Year, and we're going to do it ringside. We've got about like 20 seats set up, like a bit of an audience, and they're going to come live to Vegas. Do you want to come and sit with us? So I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah. And he's like, yeah. So we go down and we're sitting in these seats, and next thing it's like, we're live in Las Vegas. Sports Personality of the Year. Ricky, obviously it didn't go your way last night. And then it's like, yeah. And then Joe goes on and speaks. And then afterwards, we just go for a few pints and we're all talking away. And then I get a text off a woman who looks after the Spice Girls saying, Spice Girls are in Mandolin Bay tonight. You know, they've heard you're in town. Do you want to come and watch? So I was like to the lads, do you want to go and watch the Spice Girls tonight? And they were like, yeah, let's go to Spice Girls. So we end up watching the Spice Girls. Melanie got us a couple of tickets, and we end up about the third row back, waving to the Spice Girls in Mandalay Bay. So it was a pretty eventful trip, to be honest.
That's amazing. Sometimes we joke about these things as being like a Forrest Gump list, but yours definitely is that, and even more so having heard that last story. I missaid when Alden was 16, 19, of course, was that one. But look, we're out of time. It's an incredible list. You've delivered it brilliantly. We really enjoyed your company over the last half hour. Look after yourself.
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it, reminiscing. Brilliant. Thanks for
love that. We'll send you on a picture of that shiny as well. There's a nice little description of you in there as well.
Yeah, I'll go even higher with the boys at home. Yeah,
exactly.
Boys.
Thanks, Jason. Good man.
Take
it easy. Well done. That's you had to be there.